Well, thank you all very much. As I say, we certainly have a lot to think about. I just don't want to take up everybody's time too much, but maybe we could entertain a couple of questions from the floor. Bruce, you had a question, please?
Being a boater interested in the waterfront, it seems apparent, and I think there's some people promoting it. I don't really know what the status is, but I'd like to understand what you're doing about developing the harbor so that it's used for the community. We should have a public marina there so that you got a lot of boating activity in Georgian Bay over the summer. They all go somewhere else because there's really nowhere for them to berth in Collingwood, and I think that the candidates should be making sure we focus on that. The other question I have is, and you were talking about the waterfront. We seem to have a real problem with waterfront lands with the invasive species, the Phragmites, that are now attacking and growing in our community, and we need support from Collingwood. I know there's a lot of volunteers to work on it, but we need government support to control that situation.
So I can speak to, I'm a board member of the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, speaking out invasive species. And we're a group of bears from municipalities across the Great Lakes, both in Ontario and Quebec and the United States. And Phragmites is one of the impacts, as well as Asian carp. We have the low water levels, and the weather changes have increased the water levels. And certainly it's a cycle, and I don't see that it'll still be an impact in the future. As a group, we have been lobbying the federal governments on both the American side and the Canadian side, and as well as Ontario on these various issues, including the Phragmites. And there needs to be more money put into this to stamp out the Phragmites, and as well as the provincial government. The harbor. So I think we've made some changes in the harbor, bringing in some docks, increases there, and partnering with the yacht club, and they brought money to the table. There was a plan as well of increase that dockage, and the vote at the table was, let's just see how it works right now, and let's not spend a lot of money. Let's just look at a portion of it, see how that's working, and go from there. I think most of us have spoken to harbor lands and the development of the waterfront, and so that would be included in that, of looking at gas fuel, which is over at Cranberry right now. There are public ramps over at Cranberry Resort, owned by the town of Collingwood. However, those are things that should be brought forward in a waterfront master plan.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah, my name is Dave Keith, and my experience is in IT. Like one job, extensive experience there. I think it was either 4 years or 8 years ago, I asked a question about, it's related to jobs, your economic development, which is if there's an RFP that's issued by, for example, I was with a financial institution, Bank of Montreal. They issued an RFP for some technology component, a new computer center, or call center, or in the film industry. There's a lot of automation going on. In fact, Canada, I think, and Russia are two of the biggest in that particular area. And I said at the time, how would you respond to that? And they said, well, the first thing we would go, this is the answer I got, first thing we do is we go and ask them, what do they want? And if that's the position you take, you've lost. Because I used to have to issue those things for Bank of Montreal. You've lost. And I cited an example of the province of New Brunswick that put in a hydro infrastructure and a telecommunications, high-speed internet, fiber optic infrastructure. Now I realize that's a bit of a problem for you guys, but they put it in there, and they're the biggest call center environment in North America. So this bit about building and they'll come. So I asked a question about that. I said, what are you doing about improving the facilities here? Okay, I'm talking about an electronic highway. The highway here is terrible. You drive on it, I'm thinking about a trucker trying to drive on that thing, go from here to Thornbury. Somebody's driving 60 and 80 kilometer zone. Those trucks have got to get from point A to point B. They can't out of this town. The railway's gone. The airport can't handle anything that's big. And there's no shipping. But the IT industry, if it's got a high-speed internet, very high-speed internet capability, can do a lot of things, okay? And it brings hundreds of jobs, if not thousands of jobs in one shot. I've heard people say, 22 jobs today, 30 jobs today. That's good news. But if you want to do something about the tax base here, it has to be an incremental growth, not pieces at a time. So I asked that question 8 years ago, and I haven't seen anything that the town has done to try and negotiate with telecommunications suppliers, Telus, Bell, Rogers, to do anything to improve that type of facility here. And that, you want to talk about big jobs, those are high-paying jobs, okay? And those people will come in, buy homes, so they'll pay property taxes. We're talking hundreds if not thousands of people. Property taxes, support the other businesses in town, domino effect on growth. If you're going to deal with an economic plan, you're going to have to start looking at some of the industries that are really going to help you. And continuing to focus on manufacturing sector is going to be helpful, but I don't think it's going to get you where you want to go.
Are you asking about fiber optics in our area?
Well, I'm just saying you have to, this area needs a big upgrade on its infrastructure, but I'm talking about infrastructure, not necessarily road. It needs that too, not dismissing it, okay?
I think
But it needs other stuff.
The reality is we know that attracting big industry is going to be very, very difficult. We have to look to the small, specific niche market. With the Collingwood Public Utilities, when I was there, we were lucky enough to have a very, very strong IT department. It's an arm of Collingwood. Very interested in promoting different technology, fiber optics. If you recall the water heater program that we had, it was all done through the cloud network in a very, very early stage. The Simcoe County infrastructure for fiber optics, we have to piggyback on all that, but I think everybody recognizes that when we're moving forward in economic development, it's on the small niche markets, as you say, telecommunication, that type of an industry. It fits nicely with our small town infrastructure as well. And I know that's something that I'd be interested in. As I said, at the Collingwood Public Utilities, we were very interested in trying to be on the leading edge of that.
Yeah.
And we need to improve the technologies.
And just to respond to that, a lot of people don't realize, you do, I'm sure, that the electricity infrastructure can support the telecommunications infrastructure. You can run a telecommunication, you can run an internet signal down an electrical wire, okay? So if you're putting in infrastructure for electricity, you can piggyback if you talk to the right people on that and give yourself an even better chance at something.
Yeah, years ago, we put fiber optic telecommunication in between the local infrastructure for the municipal services, specifically because of speed and quantity that you can get out of it.
So, that's helping you, but I'm talking about the rest of it.
If I may.
Sorry, I'll stop.
Your suggestion is fantastic. I remember talking to you 4 years ago about this. Your ideas are fantastic and your expertise is amazing. So what I would encourage you to do is go and introduce yourself to the Marketing and Economic Development Director, Mr. Martin Ridlow. Hash it over with him, discuss your ideas with him, and become a part of it, because that's what he's there for.
If I can add to that too, I was speaking to the head of our IT department just in the last couple of weeks about having a free wireless system set up in the downtown, because that brings a lot of people up here who want to have access and don't want to have to go out looking for hotspots, that don't want to have to, or you know what all this is about. But a lot of municipalities are working towards free Wi-Fi, at least in the core areas, and that's something that we could do here without a great investment in dollars, but it would really make it accessible for visitors and for people who are doing business on the runs.
And just to piggyback on that, I think the richest man on the planet is a Mexican. I don't know if you know that or not. And he owns their telecommunication company, their phone company in Mexico, okay? Mexico didn't have the infrastructure we had here for cable. He built the whole thing on wireless. So, there is, just to support what you're saying, you can move very quickly in that environment. But to also talk about it, if you try and put something up on the escarpment, which isn't that far out of town, it's terrible up there. They have no infrastructure whatsoever. So I'm just saying, when you're talking about this stuff, it basically stops at the town line, and what we have in town, for the majority of businesses in this town, it's not high speed. I can tell you that right now.
One of the opportunities is with the utility corridor, where we have the rail line from ourselves to New Tecumseh. And then from Utopia, we are partners with the city of Barrie, who owns the rail line to the city of Barrie. So fiber optic cable could be put underneath the ground, so that instead of going point-to-point transmission with issues with miscarpet and other things, or where wires are hung on poles and so, they are exposed to wet storms, there is an opportunity to create a municipal services board with our partners and the strategic partnerships that I was talking about with the private sector to have a secure link and a high-speed link underground, underneath the rail line along that utility corridor. For somebody to go through an environmental assessment process to find a new corridor is so costly. But we have an underutilized asset, whether we're talking about fiber optics, increased wastewater, or water pumping. There's tremendous opportunity. You would be a great resource on the economic development board, even if you just wanted to do it part-time.
Well, I think we concluded, yes. I know everybody's probably anxious to go, but I want to say if some of our residents want to go up and speak personally to some of our candidates, I'd like to thank David over there for capturing all these moments. And as I mentioned before, for those that came late, they will go on our Ruperts Landing webpage and be available to all of our residents, so that for the people, and we have a number of directors here, so the word will be spread. So thank you once again.
I'm going to stand outside in the fresh air.
Yes, it is. Yes, all of us.